and whose cooperation is the expected outcome of this call. He says, "We've been watching your business. Very impressive what you've built." You say nothing. He says, "We have a proposal for you, a partnership of sorts. Your trucks, your routes, your relationships with the commercial clients. We add some efficiency to the operation. You continue running the business normally. The efficiency generates a return that we split on a schedule I'll detail in person." You say, "I need time to think." He says, "Of course." He says he'll be in touch. He says, "Give our best to Fernanda." He hangs up. You sit with the phone. Fernanda is at the table across from you. She heard her name. She didn't hear the rest. She is looking at you with the expression of a woman who already knows what the call contained, and who is waiting for the version you'll give her. You give her the full version. She listens. She says, "The children." This is the sentence that contains everything. Not "what do we do?" Not "what are the options?" The children, the 6-year-old with the drawing, the son with the bouncing backpack, the school 4 blocks away, the Tuesday mornings in the cereal aisle, the ordinary life that was purchased with $40,000 and 2 years and 4 months of careful invisible living, and that is now the leverage through which the proposal is being enforced. The proposal is not a proposal, it is an announcement. The vocabulary of the conversation was the vocabulary of business, and choice and partnership, and the grammar underneath the vocabulary was the grammar that this organization has been using for decades. You comply, or the compliance is produced through instruments that use the people you love as the mechanism. You have 2 days. The 2 days are a courtesy. The courtesy is an instrument. You think about the DEA. This is the option that the outside narrative always presents as available. The DEA, the Witness Protection Program, the deal, the new life in a new location with new documents that are real documents rather than the $40,000 version. The option is real. The option has the specific properties of an option that is available in theory and whose availability in practice depends on variables that are not fully in your control. The variables. The DEA's assessment of your value as an informant against the value of the charges they could bring against you for the things you did inside the organization before you ran. The Witness Protection Program's capacity to actually protect a family of 4 with a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old in the specific threat environment that the CJNG produces. The timeline between approaching the DEA and the organization learning that you approached the DEA, which is measured in days, in an environment where the organization has demonstrated the ability to monitor a man's movements in the cereal aisle of a Walmart in Riverside, California. The cereal aisle. They knew about the cereal aisle. If they knew about the cereal aisle, they knew about the DEA field office on the corridor between your house and the school. They would know about a visit before you parked the truck. You think about the lawyer instead, not a criminal defense lawyer, a lawyer who handles exactly this category of situation. The intersection of immigration status and criminal exposure and witness protection eligibility, and the specific legal architecture of a man who left an organization without permission and is now being asked to provide services to it from American soil, which is a different legal situation from the situation he was in when he left. Mexico authorized U.S. surveillance drones over its territory and agreed to coordinated patrols with the U.S. military, while the Trump administration designated Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations in February 2025. Mexico News Daily. The designation changes your legal position in ways you don't fully understand yet and that the lawyer will need to explain. Providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization carries specific federal charges that are distinct from the drug trafficking charges that your previous activities might generate. The distinction matters. The distinction is the difference between a legal strategy that produces a workable outcome and one that doesn't. You call the lawyer that afternoon from a phone you buy at a gas station 3 cities over. You drive there specifically, and you pay cash, and you drive back, and you make the call from a park where the ambient noise is sufficient and the sight lines are open enough that you would see the orange juice cart coming from any direction before it arrived. The lawyer answers. You give him enough. He says, "Come in tomorrow morning." He says, "Bring your wife." He says, "Bring nothing from your regular phone." You tell Fernanda at dinner. The children are eating. Your daughter is arguing about vegetables. Your son is telling a story about something that happened at recess that involves a ball and a teacher, and a misunderstanding that required his personal intervention. The story is detailed and important to him, and you listen with the specific full attention of a man who understands that this story, this dinner, this table, this specific ordinary evening might be one of the last ordinary evenings before the ordinary ends in one direction or another. You listen to the whole story, you ask about the teacher's reaction. He tells you. You say it sounds like you handled it well. He looks satisfied and goes back to his food. After the children are in bed, Fernanda packs a bag. Not a full bag, a 3-day bag, for her and the children. This is the plan you discussed after the phone call, not the lawyer plan, the contingency behind the lawyer plan, the plan that exists in case the 48 hours ends before the lawyer conversation produces a direction. The 3-day bag goes in the Durango's trunk under the emergency kit that you have maintained since you arrived in Riverside, because the emergency kit was the first thing you did when you rented the house. And Fernanda didn't ask why, because Fernanda has always known what the emergency kit was for. The morning comes. You drive the children to school. Your daughter runs from the car at the gate with the specific full-body energy of a child who has nowhere to be except exactly where she is. Your son follows at the more considered pace of an 8-year-old who has decided that full-body running is for younger children. You watch them until they are inside the building. Then, you drive to the lawyer's office. The office is in a building in Riverside that is 40 minutes from the house, with traffic. You park 2 blocks away. You walk. You watch the street. The street is the street. Nobody is reading a phone as a prop. Nobody is pushing a cart with a single item in it. The ordinary American morning is doing what ordinary American mornings do, and you walk through it with the threat assessment software running the way it has been running since you stood in the cereal aisle and counted 47 seconds. You go inside. The lawyer's name is on the door. You sit across from him and you tell him everything that can be told. And he writes things down and asks questions and writes more things down, and his face processes the information with the controlled neutrality of a professional who has heard difficult things before and who understands that his job is the processing rather than the reaction. He says, "You have options." He says it without the specific irony that the phrase has acquired in your internal monologue since the cereal aisle. He means it as a professional statement about the legal landscape. He lists them in order of viability and consequence and timeline and risk. You listen. Outside the window, Riverside does what Riverside does on a Wednesday morning. The traffic and the commerce and the ordinary operational life of a medium-sized American city that contains within it, as all American cities contain within them, the invisible infrastructure of the organizations that supply the demand that the city generates, and that the cereal aisle and the quiet neighborhood and the school 4 blocks away exist alongside without most of the people inside them knowing what they exist alongside. You are not most of the people. You are the person sitting across from a lawyer in Riverside who knows exactly what the city exists alongside because you were part of what it exists alongside before you were Alejandro Cruz in a gated community down the street from the chief of police. The options are real. The options have consequences. The consequences have timelines. You have 48 hours from the phone call, minus the hours that have already passed. You listen to the lawyer. You think about the drawing your daughter made yesterday. You think about the bouncing backpack. You think about the cereal aisle and the nod and the name that the voice on the phone used before it switched to Alejandro. Your real name in a voice from a phone in California on a Wednesday morning. The escaping is the thing you thought you did. What you actually did was move the radius of the perimeter they maintain around you from Guadalajara to Riverside. The perimeter moved with you. The perimeter has always been there. The 2 years and 4 months of ordinary Tuesday mornings were ordinary Tuesday mornings inside the perimeter, which is a different thing from ordinary Tuesday mornings outside it. Outside it is somewhere you haven't been yet. The lawyer finishes. He looks at you. He asks which direction you want to go. You think about your daughter's drawing on the refrigerator in the house in Riverside. A house, a tree, 4 people, the sun in the corner the way children always put the sun, yellow and definite and exactly where the sun belongs. You tell him which direction. The system that produced the cereal aisle nod is the same system that produced the $40,000 documents and the Dodge Durango and the school 4 blocks away and the Tuesday mornings and the neighbor who waves from the driveway. The system doesn't stop at the border. It doesn't stop at the gated community. It doesn't stop at the quiet neighborhood with the homeowners association. It extends wherever its assets extend, and its assets extend wherever the demand extends. And the demand extends into every suburb and every cereal aisle and every American ordinary morning that exists downstream of the supply chain. The escaping is the story people want to believe is available. The story is available as a journey. As a destination, it requires more than a Durango and $40,000 and a quiet neighborhood. It requires what you are currently sitting across the desk from. And the 48 hours are running. Drop your biggest takeaway in the comments. The reach of cartel networks into American suburbs, the monitoring, the leverage, the specific impossibility of ordinary escape is the most underreported dimension of what it means for these organizations to be transnational. Next week, we're going inside the witness protection cases and what actually constitutes a real exit. Subscribe. You don't want to miss it.